Now in Carlton, it's time for the ITV Nightly News.
Hamilton's ruined former minister loses libel case to Al Fayed. Jubilant Harrods boss says Christmas has come early. Venezuela floods disaster, thousands may never be found. And modified food is banned in GM firm's own headquarters.
From ITN, the ITV Nightly News with Dermot Murnaghan.
Good evening. The former Conservative government minister Neil Hamilton today lost his libel action against Mohammed Al Fayed. The jury decided unanimously that he had been corrupt in his capacity as an MP. So Mr Hamilton failed to clear his name and confirmed that he was now broke as well. He must pay legal costs, Mr Al Fayed's as well as his own, which are expected to go into 7 figures. Outside the court, Mr Hamilton said he was stunned and devastated by the jury's verdict. Mr Al Fayed claimed total vindication and said Christmas has come early. ITN's Shuli Ghosh reports.
Merry Christmas, Happy New Year.
It was a champagne celebration tonight for Mohammed Al Fayed. He says Christmas has come early. This afternoon, a jury found he'd been telling the truth when he said he'd paid Neil Hamilton to ask parliamentary questions on his behalf.
Okay,
For the last 5 weeks, the High Court has been the scene of a remarkable battle between the Harrods boss and the former Tory MP. It took the jury more than 8 hours to reach a decision. They returned this afternoon to deliver their verdict to a packed and hushed courtroom. For Neil and Christine Hamilton, the result was devastating. As Mr Hamilton dropped his head into his hands, his wife tried to comfort him. He was inconsolable. He emerged from court to face a huge crowd of waiting media. His reputation is in tatters and his name linked to corruption. But in a show of defiance, he still maintained his innocence.
I'm stunned and devastated by the jury's verdict today. And I continue to deny that I acted corruptly in the pursuit of my parliamentary or ministerial duties. I'd never have embarked upon this action if I had been guilty of the charges laid against me. For the last 5 years I've battled to clear my name. I could have thrown in the towel in 1995 when I was prevented by law from taking my libel action to court against The Guardian. I changed the law. I then fought against The Guardian, was obliged to drop that action, and I took up the cudgels again to sue Mr Fayed. So nobody could doubt my determination to prove my innocence.
He had this to say about the man he lost to.
No evidence other than the word of Mr Fayed and his close employees has been produced against me to sustain the grave charge that I accepted cash for questions. By this action, I've shown Mr Fayed in his true colours. As the judge observed, Mr Fayed is a man who has a warped appreciation of the difference between fact, fiction and truth.
And he went on to pay tribute to his wife, Christine.
I want to thank all those who've supported me during the course of this trial. First and foremost, my wife, Christine, and my family. Without their love and support, I could never have fought this battle at all.
The Harrods boss launched a scathing attack on Mr Hamilton, calling him a loser. He said the former trade minister had got what he deserved.
This is another guy who was carrying the sword of truth and the shield of justice, joined his friend Jonathan Atkin.
Okay, Mr. Fayed, we're confident at the result.
Can we come through? That, yes. You know, people like that, the whole nation, the ordinary people of this country, has to know what type of people they go elect and put them in power.
For Mr Al Fayed's barrister, it's yet another victory in a long line of victories. George Carman QC may be 70 years old, but even Neil Hamilton described him as the most fearsome advocate in the land. Under his cross-examination, Mr Hamilton admitted a lack of candour to his government colleagues about his parliamentary activities. The costs of the case are likely to run into millions. Mr Hamilton admitted he faces financial ruin. But asked if he regretted bringing the libel suit to court, he said he did not.
Well, I don't regret bringing the case, of course, because I couldn't have gone through life without straining every sinew to do everything which was possible to bring the truth out. Sadly, the jury were not convinced.
Mr Hamilton has to pay all of the costs of the action to Mr Al-Fayed.
How much were your costs?
We haven't quantified them yet, so that'll be a job for the new year.
This case has attracted massive public interest and generated opinions from all sides. Mr Hamilton may have lost his case. He hasn't lost all his well-wishers.
You haven't lost.
Thank you very much.
You're British, you're English, and it shows that we don't always win, but we have the truth. God bless you and your wife. God bless you.
In the final analysis, this case was about Neil Hamilton's integrity and honesty. Tonight, any hopes he may have had of resurrecting his political career lie in tatters. Shuli Ghosh, ITN, at the High Court.
Well, Mohammed Al-Fayed told ITN tonight he didn't feel at all sorry for Mr Hamilton because he brought the disaster onto himself. The Harrods owner said he was proud to have helped expose the MP for what he was. This report is by Juliet Bremner.
Mohammed Al-Fayed celebrating his early Christmas tonight. As he relished his victory at Harrods, he insisted he'd acted on behalf of the British people, exposing corruption in the corridors of Westminster.
Again, it's a duty for me, for the ordinary people of this country, that I got the courage, I got the means to take on people like that, to expose them, fine, for the masses and the good people of this country, right?
A man who's never shied from a fight, he won his battle to take over Harrods, but was branded a serial liar by the Department of Trade. Words echoed during the court case.
Now, the judge said, and I'm quoting, that a lot of your evidence was inconsistent and unreliable, and that you made a lot of wild and unsubstantiated allegations. How do you feel about that?
The judge, he is free to say what he wants, right? But the most important thing, the judges is the jury, right? The 11 people who are sitting over there. The judge have briefed them. He been fair to me in some things, and he'll be unfair other things.
At the end of all this, with the Hamiltons possibly facing bankruptcy, do you feel any kind of sorrow for them at all?
I have no sorrow for people like that because they bring this disaster for themselves, you know. He knows already what he have done.
He used his appearance in the witness box to attack a whole series of people, including the Duke of Edinburgh and Lady Thatcher. But tonight he appeared more conciliatory.
I have no problem with nobody. But when problems are imposed on you, then you had to fight it because you worry about nothing. My conscience is clear. I have done nothing wrong. And it is a matter of, again, fighting for your honor and for your dignity.
To seal a victorious day, there was the bonus of a win on the football pitch tonight for Mohammed Al-Fayed's Fulham team. Juliet Bremner, ITN.
The case, with all its reminders of sleaze, has been damaging to the Conservative Party, and the party chairman, Michael Ancram, said he hoped this was now the end of it. He said the Hamiltons should now retire from the scene. Here's our political editor, Michael Brunson.
There was a time when Neil Hamilton looked set for higher things. After a spell as a Conservative whip, he was made a junior minister at Trade and Industry in 1992. As the man in charge of getting rid of red tape, a project dear to John Major's heart, he was often in number 10, here at a big seminar on deregulation. What a contrast with the terse announcement tonight by the Conservative Party chairman Michael Ancram, who all but declared the Hamiltons to be Tory non-people.
Good evening. I hope that this verdict will prove the end of what has been a sad and unpleasant episode which has been damaging to our party. I trust that the personalities involved will now quietly leave the scene. If they do not, they can expect little understanding from the Conservative Party.
But there was always something rather strange about Neil Hamilton, even after he was forced to resign as a minister after the Cash for Questions allegations surfaced. He seemed to make light during a constituency visit of the fact that most of the benefits MPs receive must be declared and registered.
I shall, of course, be registering the biscuit in the Register of Members' Interest.
During the 97 general election, when sleaze in the Tory party was an issue, there was an epic confrontation in his constituency with Martin Bell, who was standing as a white knight anti-sleaze independent. The two men faced each other on Knutsford Heath.
If at the end of their day the electors of Tatton feel they can trust you more than they can trust me, then my goodness, they should elect you.
You are prepared to give me the benefit of the doubt on the allegations that have been made against
Absolutely, absolutely.
Good.
Back today at his old campaign headquarters in Knutsford, Martin Bell asked the question of himself, have I been vindicated?
I think that the Parliamentary Commissioner, Sir Gordon Downey, is vindicated. I think in a sense that the people of Tatton are vindicated, because their feelings, I think, were quite clearly expressed on election day.
Mohammed Al-Fayed talked of early Christmas presents today. Neil Hamilton's disgrace is one the Tories most certainly did not want. Michael Brunson, ITN, Westminster.
So all the stories about money changing hands in brown envelopes and extravagant stays at the Paris Ritz helped put the Tories out of office and ultimately ruined Mr Hamilton. With a reminder of the issues so explosively raised by the case, here's Paul Davis.
As the spectre of sleaze continues to haunt the Conservative Party, this libel trial has revisited a not-so-long-ago time when big business, like Harrods here, was able to buy the services of politicians to represent its interests at Westminster. It was a time when many who walked the corridors of power were happy to supplement their income with such lucrative consultancy work, though in many cases the MPs did not declare their financial interest. Neil Hamilton, then a junior trade and industry minister, was not the first member of the Tory government forced to resign over allegations that he abused his public position for personal reward. He achieved such notoriety because the man who bought his services, the Harrods owner Mohammed Al-Fayed, decided to tell the world about their little arrangement.
A question of sleaze.
In the Channel 4 programme Dispatches, Al-Fayed said Mr Hamilton represented his interests in Parliament, even asking questions in the House. In return, he received envelopes full of cash.
You know, every time he comes, he asks for some. I say, I put 2,500 in an envelope, I give it to him. Right? Sometime he asks, he say, he going here, coming there. I leave the envelope in 60 Park Lane with the doorman, or my security guy. My secretary, I ask my secretary, please put this amount of money in an envelope and leave it down below, and he come collect. And I have my people witness that. You know.
The evidence of those Al-Fayed employees proved crucial. His former personal assistant, Alison Bozek, on the left here, recalled seeing an envelope containing a wodge of money with Neil Hamilton's name on it. She arranged for it to be left with a doorman for the MP to collect. Al-Fayed's senior secretary, Iris Bond, described another envelope. I was in the office when I saw Mr Al-Fayed put the money in it, one bundle of £2,500, she said. Security officer Philip Broomfield, who worked on the door of Al-Fayed's Park Lane offices, told the court he personally handed Hamilton envelopes on 2 occasions. Edwina Curry was one of the government ministers Hamilton lobbied on behalf of his business clients. She has little sympathy for him now.
At the time he was doing it, he was boastful and proud and greedy and arrogant and very irritating. Now he suffers in the same way as everybody else. I hope he finds a future career that is more honourable than the one that he has left.
The Guardian newspaper first revealed the Cash for Questions scandal. Its then editor said the scale of corruption shocked him.
The whole thing seemed to me to be so organised that you could be a businessman in trouble, you could phone up a lobbying company, and the lobbying company would produce a couple of MPs who were willing to take money, cash in hand, for doing your business. Now that did strike me at that time, and strikes me still, as something which was a bit of a new low in British public life, and you had to do something about it.
The Hamiltons' infamous free holiday at the Paris Ritz gave the libel trial a detailed account of the good life some MPs were enjoying. During the libel trial, Christine Hamilton referred to the Paris Ritz as Mohammed Al-Fayed's beastly hotel and said she regretted ever stepping across its threshold. The couple clearly had a different view of this establishment back in 1987, when they admit accepting a free holiday here. Over 6 days, utilising the hotel's luxurious facilities to the full, they managed to run up a bill for extras alone of more than £3,000 at today's prices, and all of it passed on to Mohammed Al-Fayed to pay. The Hamiltons' admitted extravagance during that holiday became a feature of the libel hearing. The jury heard on a typical day the couple enjoyed a full breakfast in their room, costing the equivalent of £62 today. The day's minibar bill was £68 at today's prices. A four-course meal at the Michelin-starred restaurant cost £341. They enjoyed vintage wines, 2 bottles of Paul Roger champagne costing £193 to accompany their meal. Neil Hamilton has since said he regrets going over the top in Paris, though that bill pales into insignificance compared with the legal costs he faces tonight for the failed attempt to clear his name. Paul Davis, ITN, Knightsbridge.
Well, let's go back now to our political editor, Michael Brunson. So, Michael, over the years, you've seen Neil Hamilton go from darling of the Tory right to this, quite a fall.
Yes, but you could argue, you know, that it's perhaps not as big a fall as that suffered by Jonathan Aitken. There you had a cabinet minister who's now gone to jail for perjury, or even perhaps of the size of Geoffrey Archer, former deputy chairman of the Tory party, now in all kinds of trouble over that false alibi. But I think what has shocked everyone, and what has shocked so many Conservatives to the core, is the sheer extent of the greed that we now know Neil Hamilton